Good afternoon and welcome to Car Dealer Live. I'm James Baggett, I'm the founder of Car Dealer magazine, and today on the show I'm delighted to be chatting to Tim Smith, Chief Commercial Officer of GForces, about online car sales. Good afternoon, Tim.
Hi James, how are you?
Very well, thank you very much for joining us. So quick introduction for Tim. GForces is one of the UK's leading e-commerce solution providers. No doubt you'll be familiar with their work. They provide websites up and down the country for dealer groups and manufacturers. They offer everything from the bread and butter dealer websites to complex data-driven intelligence, live chat, video solutions and lots more in between. They've been operating since 1999 after the business was started by Tim's brother Giles, and Tim joined the firm a few years ago, back in 2005. So hopefully I've got that right, Tim. That's obviously quite some journey you've had over the last few years. Tell me a little bit about where GForces all began.
Where we'll be going, I think, is really e-commerce. I think we've spent a long time on this journey, as you're aware of. I think you've shared a lot of it, and a lot of our customers have shared a lot of that as well. And I think our mantra has always been about putting the consumer in the centre of the car buying journey and using digital tools and technology in order to, I suppose, help that process along. And really, we've been about trying to help dealers and support them through this digital journey and the transition. And I think the last 20 years, obviously the world's changed significantly. The use of technology is now prevalent. It's in everything that we do, not just from business, but from a personal perspective. And we've seen enormous amounts of change. But I think most people are probably aware of the messages that we've talked about and the things that we've always, I suppose, banged the drum about. But where we're excited at the moment is obviously, we feel is a bit of a culmination now and a convergence in terms of a lot of the tools and technologies to enable truly online transactions, so e-commerce, and that offers a lot of benefits to the industry, we hope, especially automotive retailing.
We'll come on to that in detail in a moment, Tim. There'll be a lot of people out there that have heard of GForces. In your business has had massive growth over the years. Just tell me a little bit about what it looks like now. How many staff have you got? Okay,
so we actually operate in 8 countries. So obviously the UK, we've got offices in Kent and in Birmingham, but we have run a successful operation in the Middle East for quite some time now, and probably, I think, service about 60% of major automotive retailers in that region. Pretty exciting part of our business, obviously. And then Australia has been a recent, if you like, opportunity, and we're starting to sign clients up there, taking e-commerce into that market. And we've got a development team in Poland, which we've used and had for many years, absolutely core to the success of our platform and our business. But as well, more recently, in the last few years, we've set up an operation in Vietnam, where we've got a lot of development and testing team out there, who've allowed us as well to sort of accelerate the development of our e-commerce platform, and also support the ongoing maintenance of all of our websites and our platform and our hosting. And then really there's the US. So we are servicing a manufacturer directly out in the US, but again, moving forward, we're starting to open up the retail marketplace as well. So it's a lot of areas. I think we work in now 60 countries in terms of the services and the solutions that we offer, and hopefully more and more in the future.
That's some incredible growth and quite some coverage across the globe. I suppose that's set you up quite nicely, Tim, for when it comes to operating from home in this crisis. I mean, I suppose having to deal with those markets, you're already very used to these sorts of conference calls.
Look, we very nature of what we do, we're pretty much a bunch of techies. I'm not a techie, but even I am quite technical. Our whole company, people who work there are just used to, immersed in it. They're native to digital. So I don't think that use of Zoom and if you like distance tools, you use Slack as well across the business, working remotely within teams is not really a major obstacle. But what has been very interesting is that obviously with the forced closure of our offices, we've had to have all of our development teams split up, and they are working from home, and we've still seen, I think even us in the back of our minds, we were worried about, productivity. There's nothing like face-to-face, contact. There's nothing like seeing, sitting with people. You get that socialization of ideas. Even now, we have seen that, the teams can be incredibly productive, just get on with stuff. And actually, we've had to realize that you need to put in more flexibility in terms of trust, I think, in individuals to just get on with the job. So we have been really pleasantly surprised about it. I think a lot of businesses have, but for us, it's probably not been quite as large a step as many.
So we've reported over the last few weeks on the uptick. You've seen an interest from dealers, and obviously last week we got some confirmation from the government that they're happy for dealers to sell online or remotely and deliver to big customers' homes. Not practical for all dealers, as we know, but there are some out there now doing it. What have you seen as a result when it comes to inquiries for people who want to put these online opportunities onto their websites?
You talk about GForces?
Yeah, GForces in general. Yeah, has it increased your business off the back of that?
Yeah. So if we go back to when this all started, I think we were like any business. We were running around, fearful. We were, the exec team we were meeting once, twice a day, trying to figure out the strategy and the tactics to deal with this. Are we going to have to, close down to a skeleton staff? And we're worried about cash flow, all of that, and like any other business. But as the dust started to settle, with our teams, the account management team, client success team, the support teams, they were getting inundated. They were really, really busy, and not just during the standard work hours. They're working outside of hours. The first couple of weeks, just trying to turn things around. I think our customers were obviously wanting to get their digital presences in a state that we're dealing with COVID-19. We've got messages going out. We're positioning ourselves to car buyers. So we had a general day-to-day activity that was really important, opening hours, all those standard kind of things. But very quickly, that turned into, okay, we've kind of dust has settled. We're working on, potential furloughing staff, reducing costs. But a lot of dealers started to ask us very quickly, well, what can you guys do to help us keep the lights on? And what they mean lights on is just, sell vehicles online, transact to any extent. And I think 2 weeks in, we started to see a significant uplift in terms of interest around getting e-commerce enabled websites out there, especially end-to-end. So being able to sell full journey, proposition, finance, the whole lot online. And that had a real impact in a way that we were looking at the business, because we had to furlough about 60, 70 of our staff in the UK, and I've listened to these the car dealer live, and it is staggering how much of an impact that has on the individuals not who are being furloughed, but the ones who are running companies. I don't think any of us really have had to face those kind of decisions. I know you have, James. You've had the same things. We talked about this previously, and it's a tough thing, and you feel you doing the right thing. So we had to take that decision, and we thought actually it was going to get a lot worse. We'd have to furlough another tranche of the company, but because of the demand, we've actually tried to be accelerating, supporting our clients, and get these e-commerce enabled websites out faster. And actually, that's been happening. So that's a positive.
So I noticed Robert Forrester from Virtue this morning tweeting that he'd had 380 sales inquiries yesterday and sold 66 cars. Okay, huge group.
Yep.
But that really is some fantastic information that a lot of dealers will be wanting to hear. Are you seeing that other dealers are getting back to life with these e-commerce platforms enabling them to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. We're getting groups that are, they're not the scale, if you like, in terms of Robert's and Virtue, but we're getting 10s, 15s, 20s in a day through certain dealer groups, which is fantastic. So, and there's a lot more in terms of reservations, a lot more in terms of taking deposits and holding on to the vehicles. But interestingly, we do have some smaller clients who, at the moment, are about 50% of their sales, and this was pre-COVID, were going through the e-commerce platform. Granted, not all of those were full end-to-end, and there's a distinction here, and it's possibly useful to clarify this for anyone who's listening. When we talk about e-commerce, from a GForces perspective, I think we look at it as the ability to go from start to finish fully online, at any point, what and which finance provision you want to take to be able to secure a car and buy the car. So it might be HP, PTP, it might be leasing, whatever, or payment fully in one hit, which some people have been doing. But there's also, other flavors where you can take it to a certain level and then you go live chat, pick up the phone, get in contact with the dealer. And that's another valid way. It's just taking people further down the buying funnel. For us, we want to try and take as much out of the sales process as possible and transfer it totally, online as much as possible, because it's less of a burden, if you like, on dealerships in terms of the staff. It automates a lot of process. It gives customers a seamless journey as well. And that for us is the nirvana, and we've got there in terms of the ability to do the end-to-end. But I think any way that you can take further down the buying cycle is a good thing for the industry.
So Tim, let's talk some practical advice for those dealers out there who might not have an online sales capability at the moment. There's probably a lot of them desperately scrabbling around, working out how to do it. Obviously, a lot of them can come to you, but let's try and give some practical tips to these guys. Where should they begin? What's the most important thing for a dealer to think about when it comes to trying to sell online?
I think you've got to have a stable web platform. I think we're twisting or turning now from, look, it's not just a lead generation tool, it's not just a shop window. This is a business tool. It is taking transactions, it's taking money through systems. So it's incredibly important. So it's got to be stable, secure, and security is not just about taking payments online and not losing them. It's also about customer data, privacy policies. And I know this is probably lower down the agenda now, quite rightly, given this global pandemic. But data is very, very important, not just from a personal perspective, giving over your information, expecting it to be used correctly, not abused, but also from a dealer perspective. You've got to own that information from the consumer, during that car buying journey and after it. They're your customer, they're your consumer. You need to be able to use that, and that's part of a dealer's armory. It's part of part of their almost like balance sheet and value. The more data, the better their CRM records, the more value that business has. So that's a really important thing in terms of security stability. The second thing is obviously functionality. If you want to sell online, you've got to have the functionality. So, you know, part exchange valuations, finance quotes, you've got to be able to express delivery and collection methods at the right point in the journey. So it's clarity to consumers, especially now. You know, that safety and security of mind is really important. And then reserve vehicles, finance applications, credit checks. These are all little modules. These are all little things that have to be there on a website in order to be able to transact online. And when I said about earlier convergence of the technology, a lot of this stuff has been available for many, many years. The trick has been to get it all merged into a seamless journey that actually makes sense and is cohesive when you put it onto a dealer's website.
I take it one of the first thing that customers do when they're looking to transact online is get a price for their part exchange. I would have thought that's probably an early part of the process. In the article that we wrote that you helped us with, you gave some kind of quite practical advice on that front, in so much as consumers are quite honest, you've found, haven't you?
Yeah, do you know, this is, I think that they are. They're actually more, I think when you ask someone generally to appraise themselves, not just their car, they tend to be more honest about their shortcomings than if someone else does it. And I think there's a worry, there's always been a worry that, you know, if dealers have got to provide a guaranteed underwritten value of a vehicle against the finance application, I'm going to get, you know, shortchanged if the thing comes up with dents. There's a lot of opportunity to put in the terms and conditions around your valuation, so how it's been underwritten, the assumptions that you make when you underwrite a vehicle. But on the whole, people are pretty willing to put a realistic value in. And I think We Buy Any Car has been the world's best example of that, where I think when we all looked at it from an industry, you go, well, they're giving away or putting really low value on vehicles. Consumers were happy with it. It's convenience, and just got on with it. So, you know, that's where we stand with that.
What about the elements that we've discussed there? I mean, can dealers get away with just making some parts of the process online, or do they have to go the whole hog? I mean, for example, buy this car button, can that replace with a reserve this car button?
Yeah, it can. Look, there's no right or wrong, and there's no way that we as an organisation should be prescriptive. What we try and do is build the solution to be the best that we see it as being. And look, we might be wrong. Okay, hands up. You know, a lot of this stuff is always new. You have to try it, test it, refine it, improve it. So we don't have, you know, all the secret sauce. And it is different dealer by dealer. And you have to look at it from an operational perspective. Is that dealer ready to be able to transact fully online? Do they have the infrastructure of their staff ready to use those tools? So no, I don't think it's necessary to have everything in place. I do think it's necessary to be on that journey and have a platform that does enable that without a shadow of a doubt, because otherwise you start to then have to backward engineer stuff, you have to rip stuff out. But the other point I would say is try and keep the journey as seamless as possible. So keep them on your website, keep them in your brand, keep them in your, you know, environment, so it looks native to the car buyer. You know, we all buy stuff online, and if you're forced to go off, you know, your journey, you browse somewhere and then, oh, I've got to go off on this tangent, it's not quite the same. And psychologically, you can always get a little bit more of a dropout unless it's as seamless as possible. So that's our view on it. But, you know,
I can see how that would work, because we are trying to convince car buyers who have traditionally gone and kicked the tyres to on a dealer's forecourt to do that online. And if you start taking them off into different areas, it's going to put some doubt in their mind, isn't it? And I suppose they need the reassurance now more than ever.
Yeah, reassurance is really important. So, I mean, we call it digital signposting, but there's all sorts of ways, tricks, cues, methodologies, design tricks that you can do to maintain that, I suppose, image of continuity. User experience, the decision flow is very, very important. Breaking the journey up into parts. But another really, really critical area that we found is the my account area. So if you're going to transact or get to a certain point online, the ability for the consumer to pick it up and, you know, start again an hour later or half an hour later, because they've started the journey online and then the kid knocks on the door and says, I need some help with my distance learning from school or whatever, which happens every single minute. But it's that ability to start, stop, but maintain the journey. So that's another important thing, we think.
Yeah, because I suppose buying a car isn't a short thing. It's not like buying some Nespresso coffee that can be done in a couple of minutes. You have to spend some time on that journey. I suppose being able to save it and come back to it after you made yourself that coffee is probably a massive bonus. Yeah. Tim, one of the things that you mentioned to me when we were discussing that article the other day that I found really interesting was the deposit level and the information you found on how much money dealers should be asking customers to put down as a deposit, and I was quite shocked at the answer you gave me. So perhaps we could just go back over that for viewers.
Yeah, now. I'm sure Neil won't mind me mentioning this, but we did have a really good discussion with Snows. So Neil McHugh, was on last week, I believe, and he, you know, we did have a discussion about what, you know, online deposits reservation figure should be, and for us, we've seen more success and a higher uptake at £99 as a reserve figure. Now, I think the fear or the worry about having a relatively low number is, well, they can just walk away and then we've lost the sale and blah, 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 and it was only £99. £250 is much more of a psychological buy-in. People won't just walk away from a £250 deposit. That's fine, but what we've seen is that, you know, is kind of like arbitration, and we'll only know truly once the numbers start to roll in over the next sort of month, 2 months. We see a significant increase in reservations and deposits if it's at £99 versus £249, £250, £199. So we gauge that as the sweet spot. Now, again, our hands up. At the end of this, if everyone walks away and leaves their deposit and the car and just walks away from £99, we were wrong. But I'm pretty confident in the analysis that we've done that that's not going to happen. Yeah, and the other thing that I will say is, you know, it's another level of commitment. So they're in. So you've always got the ability to go back to that consumer, keep the conversation going. You know, oh, why? You know, you're still looking for the car. You're still looking forward. Here's the next update. Here's the next update. So they're in your network. They're in your I call it a lobster pot. You know, the further they go in, the harder it is to get out.
What about when it comes to displaying these cars, Tim? I mean, for years we've been talking about how important it is to take God knows how many pictures of the car, video.
8,000 pictures of a car.
Yeah,
500 pictures of the wheels.
Especially when you, I mean, a dealer I was chatting to the other day compared it to a £500,000 house from Zoopla that's got 6 pictures and doesn't show you the garden, and still people buy those. I mean, what are your thoughts on how dealers display them? What sort of pictures do they need to take? Is video important when it comes to online purchases?
Yeah, video is. I see this, and we've seen this as an engagement curve, if you like. And the best engagement that anyone can have with a car is a test drive, right? And then a walk around, and you're seeing it in the flesh, and that's why the test drive remains so important. We know that, we understand it. We're a digital company, but we understand that. Still drive cars, love the feel and the smell and the look and the sound, all of that. But if you can't get to that, personalized videos, walk rounds and videos of vehicles is the next best thing, especially if there's some sound in it, the door closing or the exhaust note or anything, immersive. It's why, television shows about cars are successful or have such a following. It's why, research like Drive Tribe are heavily subscribed. I know that's more car enthusiasts, but they are important. If you can't do video, then of course high quality photos, images, and you don't need 500, but 15, 20, and the wheels are good. I still always go back to the Autoquake model years ago, and they probably did about 30 or 40 of the interior and exterior, and they have one of each wheel, and it just was really, really good. But they had dedicated prep centers, the cameras all wired up, and press a button, and it automated it. But anything that can automate that is important, I think. Definitely. But yeah, that's view on it.
There are going to be a lot of dealers out there that are planning their return to work at the moment. If and when that happens, we don't know, but hopefully soon. There's going to be a lot of businesses now that are going to be thinking about how to do it differently, surely. The traditional salesman sat behind a desk in a showroom compared to one who's actively taking inquiries in the evening on a live chat is going to be very different. I mean, can you see this being the step change in how dealerships staff their businesses?
Yeah, I can. This is a tricky one, because I don't want to say anything that scares people or is detrimental, and it's a sensitive time as well. But we've all talked about the cost of running dealerships and the slither that is the return on sales in automotive retail, and it's ever since I've been involved in it, and I'm relatively new to the industry, really, worked in it or around it and supporting it for 15 years, but it's just been, the margins are getting thinner, and therefore you have to be operationally more efficient. And one of the things, terrible that it is, has crystallized and acted as a catalyst to an extent, the fact that vehicles can be sold online, you can do more online, and you don't necessarily need to do so much of the face-to-face. Now, how that changes is, do those sales people who were doing face-to-face become, repurposed and start to focus more and more and more on digital? That was happening anyway. Years ago, I suppose you got the people picking up salespeople picking up the live chat, but then more and more of that gets moved into BDCs and centralized. So there's definitely a lot of questions, and I do think it will be different. I think it's going to be more of the click and collect, and over time, I think as people get more comfortable and feel safe again, there'll be more deliveries to home. it's definitely going to be different, and it's not just me saying that. This is our customers who realise it, and it's triggered something. I think Peter Vardy said it on Friday, which he stepped back from his business and looked, 10-year plan, and I think a lot of our customers are doing exactly the same. They've, once the flurry of activity, the operational worries, sort of were taken care of as far as they could, started to think more and more about the business and the future of the business, and really, thinking ahead. So yeah, it will change, and it will change. This is going to cause it to change faster than I think we've ever seen.
Yeah, absolutely. It's certainly what I'm hearing from people that I'm chatting to. What about distance selling regulations, Tim? There'll be quite a few dealers out there that are not set up for online sales or remote sales at the moment that might be worried about distance selling regulations. You gave some practical advice on those topics as well. Perhaps we could just give some reassurance to people on that front as well.
Yeah, so it's the Consumer Contracts Regulation 2014, which updated distance selling regulations. And this is really about delivering to the home, without having any face-to-face contact part of the buying process. So there's inevitably a cooling off period of 14 days. Again, this is a similar thing to we would talk about in terms of valuations. Dealers can, to some extent, protect themselves from, misuse or damage. And if the deal changes, put collection fees if they have to go back and collect the vehicle for any reason. So it's really about looking and updating the terms and conditions of the sale. If you buy into the fact that a distance sale is going to occur and there's going to be more of them, then this is something that just needs to be addressed. And we can, and I'm sure there are other companies, give sort of a little bit more practical advice. So our customers, when we deliver, we don't just deliver the e-commerce solution, go see ya. Our head of e-commerce, Paul Stokes, who had an enormous amount of practical knowledge running Rockart. He delivers a lot of that practical advice face to face, in training sessions with his team. So just remember, that's there to protect not just the consumer, but also the dealer as well.
There will be a number of smaller dealers out there, Tim, and I know that you do deal with some of them, but traditionally you've got a lot of the bigger groups and manufacturers. For those guys who are probably thinking, I have not got the resources to make this happen, what advice or guidance could you give to those guys? So,
typically we're talking about the independent sector more so. And yeah, you're absolutely right. Historically, GForces was set up, and we work with franchise dealer market predominantly, but more and more we're working with independents, and I think should never shy away. One thing I learned early on when you talk about digital is niche is important. Know your niche, and independents, a lot of them know their niche, absolutely nailed on. And as guys, as adept at being able to deliver and use e-commerce technology as a main dealer. In fact, in some respects, it can be much more flexible, faster moving. We're able to support. We can get the technology and the platforms out there quicker than we ever have been able to do. And really, in terms of being able to sell online, it's the same operational things as a main dealer. Is it, does someone come and collect? And at the moment, obviously, you're going to have to look at PPE and all of the I suppose the hygiene factors from that perspective. But moving forward, delivery, is that a problem? Driving to customers' house? These are things that can all be overcome. Just on a main dealer perspective or a franchise dealer perspective, they scale up. Same problem, so.
Tim, you've been very good at giving some practical advice for all levels of dealers, and not talking specifically about your own products or services. So I'd love to give you the opportunity just to sell your solution to our viewers, because there'll be some people now who are going to say, Tim's the man that I need to chat to. So this is your opportunity to explain what you can do.
Well, is this like an elevator pitch?
It is, yeah, exactly that.
This is right. So, well, look, James, I'm going to say, obviously, I think that our Net Direct to AutoE product is the best automotive e-commerce platform in the world. I know a lot of competitors are going to say, no, it's not. But we've been doing this for a long, long time. Okay, the platform's used all over the world. I think I touched on that earlier. It is secure, it's stable, it's robust, it scales up, it's cost effective. A lot of potentially independents don't necessarily know that. It is true software as a service, so it gets updated constantly. I mean, during this COVID-19, GForces were the first company to release Apple Pay and Google Pay, Android Pay on an automotive e-commerce platform. We just chose not to go to market and broadcast that fact, not the right time, but when we got in contact as well via Stripe, they confirmed that. So we've got a lot of technology and innovation bred into the company, or inbuilt into the company. I shouldn't say inbred, that's a bit wrong. But look, it's working. Our clients are getting sales out of it. If you don't believe me, we've got a whole list of them, and I'm sure they're willing to talk to you and say that.
Well, you've sold it to me. Sold it to me. Two questions I've asked all of my guests. I'd like to ask you as we just finish up. What's the single most important thing you've personally learned from this crisis?
The first one's a bit flippant, but teachers. They're so important.
Yeah.
Anyone who's got kids of a certain age will know. School. But what I really I've taken from this is that there is this is the best times, it's the worst of times to such an extent. We've never, as a human species, been restricted in terms of our movement and ever before, not even during the world wars. So it's incredible. And there's so much negativity in terms of obviously how many people COVID-19 has impacted in terms of deaths in the family and of loved ones. But the positive human spirit has been incredible. I mean, my street, like, I know more people on my street now, never before. I've got WhatsApp groups. People are doing more for each other. So the local community spirit is great. And I think we heard the phrase wartime spirit, and I think this is as close as our generation will ever get to it. And luckily, for once, the world has got a common enemy. There's a few people who are trying to blame certain others, but we'll forget those idiots. This is a common enemy, and it's engendered a lot of community spirit and human spirit. So that for me has been actually positive. And
in terms of the motor industry, what positive can they look forward to going forward?
Look, the whole industry is, it's incredible. It's one of the largest employers in the whole of the UK and the UK economy. Hundreds of thousands of people employed in this industry, with the directly manufacturing, with obviously through motor retailing and the support of that industry as well, like companies like ourselves. But but I see positivity, I see innovation, I see ways around it, I see people trying to think their ways out of situations and working their ways out of situations. So it does, and it did seem extremely dark, you know, a month ago, and there's massive challenges ahead. But the more people are talked to, you know, the more you feel confident that individuals, leaders, and everyone who works around will support that. We've been incredibly lucky to be supported by, you know, wonderful people in our organisation, so many of them willing to go on to furlough, not because they wanted to leave the office, I hope not, I hope that's not the case, but because they just wanted to support what they thought was a greater good. And that's been across the board. It's not just our company, it's not GForces, we're not special in that regard. Of course, we feel our people are special, but that's where I see positivity for the automotive retail sector, despite the challenges.
Tim, I wish you and the company all the best. I've been a long-term admirer of the work that you guys do, and I hope that the crisis gives you some opportunities and also teaches you some lessons. But you know, best of luck to you and the team for the future.
And James, thank you again. I know you've been thanked before publicly, but well done. You're doing an absolutely amazing job. You're kind of keeping this industry together. So it's or at least acting as a focal point, which is fantastically important. So well done.
Thank you, Tim. That means a lot. Thank you. So thanks ever so much to Tim and GForces for giving up their time today. This week on the show, I've got some more brilliant guests. Tomorrow, we're talking about how to safely sanitize and prepare a car for sale if you have decided to deliver during the lockdown. On Thursday, I'm talking to Porsche specialist Phil Raby, and on Friday it's the Autocar team editorial director Jim Holder, their editor Mark Tishaw, and the managing director of the business Rachel Pressure, talking about the industry in general. If you want to get involved in Car Dealer Lives like this one, you can email me. It's james@blackbullmedia.co.uk. Find me on Twitter @CarDealerEd, or find me on LinkedIn. If you want to, I've set up a WhatsApp group for breaking Car Dealer magazine news yesterday. Had nearly 100 people join that, so if you want to get involved, drop me an email via the website and I'll get you added. And there's a further schedule of Car Dealer Lives on the website. Scroll down a little bit on cardealermagazine.co.uk and you can find out who's coming up over the next couple of weeks. Which just leaves me to say a massive thank you once again to Tim for joining me today, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Goodbye.